Now, I know this is a pretty dramatic story, but no matter what you learn about Princess Soraya, I want you to leave a crown emoji in the comments for her because I want you guys to remember that she was a child. She got married at 16 to a 32-year-old prince, okay? So I know her actions weren't the most admirable, but she was a child. So leave a crown emoji in the comments for her, since she just had a sad life that she didn't really have much of a choice against, right? I do also want to say that I am coming down with something. So if you hear it in my voice or my voice sound a little strange, just try to bear with me because I'm not quite there yet, but you know when you're about to catch something. So pray for a speedy recovery for me because, I'm not liking the feeling. But nonetheless, we are going to get into her childhood. And I'm just going to say this is pretty dramatic. But first, hey friend, welcome to my channel, Queen Allude, where we deep dive and break down the most iconic stars through history. If you're not yet subscribed, please be sure to do so. And if you're already subscribed, please turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. Now, let's start with her childhood, okay? So right from the get-go, on June 22nd, 1932, in a fancy hospital in Isfahan, and if I'm mispronouncing any names, please correct me in the comments, okay? Soraya seemed like she was on track for something big from birth. Born to a high-flying Iranian nobleman and his wealthy German wife, Soraya's life was all about luxury and, fancy stuff. She went to those top-notch schools that turn you into the epitome of elegance. But here's the kicker. Despite being drop-dead gorgeous, thanks to her mixed heritage, Soraya had a bit of a fiery side. She was German and Iranian, so that's what she was mixed with. And yep, she was known to snap back and lose her cool pretty easily. She was beautiful, but she did have a heated temper, okay? Now let's fast forward to the late 1940s. The Queen Mother of Iran was on a mission. She wanted to find the perfect wife for her son, Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. She's convinced that Soraya is the one to become the Queen of Iran to marry her son, right? But this isn't your average fairy tale. The Queen Mother sends her daughter to check Soraya out, right? Which is already a bit weird because Soraya was just a teenager, only 16, fresh out of school. Meanwhile, the Shah was double her age at 32. Talk about rushing things, right? But despite the red flags, the royal family was all in. They invite Soraya over, making it seem like a casual visit. But plot twist, it was basically an audition for the role of a lifetime, being queen. And Soraya, well, she was totally blown away by the palace and the Shah himself. Decked out in his military gear, he looked every bit the king. And Soraya was head over heels, calling him magnificent. The feeling was mutual. The Shah couldn't take his eyes off of her. He did actually really, really love her, unlike with his first wife, okay? He was smitten by her. Things moved super fast after that. The Shah was ready to pop the question, and when Soraya's dad asked her if she was up for marrying the Shah, she said yes, swept up in the whole romance and royal glam. But her parents weren't too happy about it. I mean, the age difference, but she was already in love and was like, yes, 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 yes. But you gotta wonder, did she really know what she was getting into? Marrying a guy with a country on his shoulders is no small deal, and that decision was about to turn her world upside down. And remember, she was only 16. Although they said the palace lied about her age to not make people feel weirded out, they said that she was 18 to the public, when in reality she was 16. Soraya's jump into royal life wasn't the dreamy fairy tale kind of deal that you hear about in stories. Nope. It was more like she dived headfirst into a sea of red flags that she just didn't see coming. Young and a bit naive, she missed all the signs that this royal family was a hot mess. First off, the Shah's dad was the kind of guy who thought love and affection were things you should keep on the down low. Thinking it would toughen up his son, he's not the type to hug or kiss any of his kids. So the Shah grew up pretty love deprived. His idea of a pep talk, using a riding whip, a whip that you hit horses with. Then there was the Queen Mother, smothering her kids with a love that felt more like a chokehold than anything else, and she was very jealous and possessive for her kids, especially the Shah. On top of that, Soraya was stepping into the shoes of the Shah's ex-wife, Princess Fazia of Egypt, who was equally just as gorgeous, according to some, if not more. So that was some big shoes to fill, okay? Their marriage had crashed and burned. Let's not even start on the Shah himself. The guy had a track record for playing the field, even while he was married the first time around. Secret flings and affairs were more his style than staying faithful. But Soraya, bless her heart, said yes to marrying the Shah anyway. They planned to tie the knot on December 27th, 1950, but then, as if straight out of a soap opera, Soraya got typhoid fever right before the big day. That was an omen, right? Everything had to be put on hold. The Shah, showing a softer side, played the devoted fiancé, visiting her and leaving jewels by her pillow. For a moment, it seemed like a real love story. That lovey-dovey phase didn't last long, though. The royal family, eager to get them hitched, set a new date for February 12, 1951. On her wedding day, Soraya was barely hanging on, looking more like she needed a hospital than a wedding chapel. She was so frail and cold, she had to wear wool under her fancy wedding dress. And speaking of the dress, it was a beast, weighing at a whopping 66 pounds. Can you imagine wearing a 66-pound wedding dress? The thing was practically a workout just to wear. Soraya was struggling so much that even the Shah, who usually seemed to live in his own world, noticed. Just moments before they were supposed to say "I do," he ordered the train of her dress to be cut off so she could actually walk down the aisle. You might think it was all roses and rainbows at first, with them being head over heels for each other, but let me tell you, it didn't take long for things to get spicy, and not in a good way. Picture this. So Soraya, barely 18, stepping into the role of queen. You'd expect some fairy tale vibes. Our girl had a bit of a temper problem, as we stated before. When Soraya was in a good mood, she was the life of the party, sweet, charming, everyone's best friend. But man, if you got on her bad side, you'd better duck for cover. Case in point, after a tiff with the Shah at a dinner party, she grabbed a vase, a priceless one, and threw it against the wall, boom, in front of all the guests. But it wasn't just the vase smashing that left everyone speechless. It was her razor-sharp tongue that really did the damage. Their fights were legendary. At one dinner, when the Shah tried to play it cool by saying Soraya was just his type, she shot back with a zinger. Well, I cannot say the same for His Majesty. Like, for being a Shah, he was taking a lot of her mess because, like we stated, he actually was smitten by her. And I'm glad that she didn't play because, unlike with his first wife, she went through it, honey. Gets juicier. Behind closed doors, Soraya played hardball. After a particularly nasty row, she kicked the Shah out of their bed, making him sleep on a cot outside her door for weeks. And when someone dared to question her about it, she was like, he can put his bed over there, pointing to a corner of the room. Ice cold, right? But she was under a lot of stress because her mother-in-law was like the mother-in-law from hell. Can you imagine? Especially what he put his first wife through. And then not just that, there was a lot of pressure for her to get pregnant. Not just that, she didn't like the life, in Iran. She was more into the Western freedom, etc. She was very depressed, and I couldn't imagine being married at 16. Now, amidst all this drama, there was something even bigger brewing under the surface. Despite their fiery arguments, the Shah was actually quite reserved, a side effect of his lonely, love-deprived childhood. Even when it was just the two of them, he'd stick to formalities, always using the polite Persian "you" with Soraya. Talk about awkward for her, because he just wasn't being as affectionate as she wanted him to, although he was more affectionate than he usually was, which is just what he knew. Soraya, on her part, wasn't one to sit quietly under pressure. She loved stirring the pot. Soraya started ditching royal protocols, opting out of formal wear and ignoring her royal duties because they were boring. She didn't even like wearing her crown. As you can imagine, this didn't make her any friends at the court. With her European background and these antics, the Iranian elite started calling her that German woman, and not in a nice way. Mohammad Reza might have been smitten, but the rest of the court, they were less than impressed. Soraya decided to go water skiing in Miami, rocking a bikini that left little to the imagination. Back home in Iran, this was nothing short of a bombshell. The photo of her stunt got banned. The Shah's first wife already had a frosty welcome from the royal in-laws, so Soraya walking into this lion's den was like stepping into a reality TV show. The queen mother and the sister-in-law, let's just say, they were not fans. Every sweet thing the Shah did for Soraya was like a red flag to them, sparking jealousy and plotting. Soraya on her end wasn't exactly playing the cool queen either. The Shah had a daughter, Princess Shahnaz, from his previous marriage, and the age gap between Soraya and Shahnaz was awkward. Daughter was only 7 years younger than her. Can you imagine having a stepmom that's only 7 years older than you? So Soraya's reaction, full-on evil stepmother mode. She couldn't stand Shahnaz getting any attention from the Shah, and even through what can only be described as an epic tantrum, demanding to be the center of attention. The Shah's response, a simple, loving, shut up. But did Soraya tone it down? Nope. She went nuclear, sending Shahnaz off to boarding school and cutting her out of their lives as much as possible. This move, though, might have come from a place of fear more than anything else. You see, Soraya had one job as a queen: give the Shah an heir. 3 years into the marriage, no baby announcements were made, and whispers of fertility issues started swirling. Eventually, the Shah sent Soraya to America for a medical checkup, hoping against hope for good news. And guess what? The New York doctors were like, it's all good. You're just stressing out. You need to relax. You can have a baby. But then, plot twist, a second opinion in Boston confirmed their worst fear. Soraya was infertile and couldn't bear children. Imagine that flight back to Iran. All hopes dashed, the future uncertain, and a royal marriage hanging by a thread. It was clear things were heading towards a cliff, and let me tell you, the fall was going to be brutal. By 1954, things were looking pretty grim for our royal duo. A beautiful queen and her dashing king fighting tooth and nail to keep their marriage afloat amidst a sea of royal expectations and personal heartaches. They were like two stars on a collision course, especially after they got hit with the bombshell that having kids just for them. They even toyed with the idea of the Shah's brother, Ali, stepping in to provide an heir. In the autumn of 1954, tragedy struck like a bolt out of the blue. Prince Ali, the Shah's brother, died in a plane crash at only 32. With him gone, the pressure to produce a male heir went from high to sky high. Soraya, bless her heart, was put through the ringer. She tried everything, tests, treatments, you name it, all in a desperate bid to get pregnant. But no dice. And as if dealing with her own private heartbreak wasn't enough, she had to face the Royal Mean Girls Club, led by none other than the Queen Mother herself. Picture the cattiest gossip you can imagine, now multiply it by 10. That was Soraya's daily dose of support from her in-laws. The mom was just spreading it around that, oh, she's barren, she will never give my son any children, and was, in a sense, bullying her. Every time they'd come to dinner, she'd be asking, when are you going to give my son a child? You know. So what's a king to do? The Shah came up with a plan that was scandalous even by royal standards. He'd take a second wife. Now, this wasn't exactly unheard of in their circles, because even his own father had multiple wives. But we're talking about Soraya here, the woman who could turn a cold shoulder into an art form. She shot the idea down and was like, absolutely not. But Soraya wasn't just about blocking moves. She had ideas of her own. In a bold, borderline audacious move, she suggested changing the entire constitution of Iran. Just amend the country's founding documents so one of the Shah's half-brothers could take over. The Shah, probably trying to keep the peace, was like, sure, honey, but then dropped the classic, I have to check with the council of the wise men line. There was no council. It was a classic, it's not you, it's me move. And he was never going to change the constitution, but he didn't want to lose his marriage, and he didn't want to just tell her no and break her heart. As if Soraya didn't have enough on her plate, the Queen Mother started twisting the knife, pushing the Shah to dump Soraya and move on, like divorce her and just marry another woman. Can you imagine? And after all that drama, all those fights for love, the Queen Mother was ready to toss Soraya aside. So it gets worse. So Soraya, our queen, wasn't exactly the biggest fan of her husband's family or his pals. And speaking of friends, let's talk about Ernest Perron, the Shah's best friend. These two were so close that rumors swirled around them being more than just friends, and that they had like a little gay love affair going on. Perron even had his own room in the palace, so he was staying in the palace with the Shah and Soraya. Soraya, though, wasn't too happy about this. She couldn't stand the guy. She called him cunning, but then things got real messy. One day, out of the blue, Perron decided to drop some unsolicited advice on Soraya about her bedroom intakes with the Shah. Like, giving her advice on how to be intimate with him, basically. And not in a subtle way. It was clear as day that the Shah had been oversharing their private business with his best friend. Soraya was livid. Imagine someone you can't stand telling you how to spice up your love life based on what your husband said. Soraya had enough. She demanded the Shah give Perron the boot from the palace. But before any of that could happen, the marriage hit the ultimate turbulence. By March 1958, it was game over. Iran announced they were divorcing, and Soraya was out as queen. The craziest part, Soraya said she was blindsided by the news, even though just 9 days before, the Shah had called her begging to take a second wife to have an heir. She thought they still had time to figure things out. Despite all the drama, no one could deny the Shah's deep love for Soraya. When he announced the divorce, the man was a wreck, crying in front of everyone. Even a British ambassador said Soraya was his only true love. Post-divorce, Soraya was supposed to fade into the background, but the Shah wasn't having any of that. He showered her with gifts, a penthouse in Paris, a hefty allowance, a Rolls-Royce Phantom, and a Bulgari Ruby. But here's where it gets spicy again. Despite everything, Soraya and the Shah kept seeing each other in secret. It was like they couldn't let go. Yet the Shah had to move on. He was desperate for an heir, so in 1959 he married Farah Diba. By October 1960, Farah gave birth to a boy, Crown Prince Reza. That news must have been a gut punch to Soraya, but like the queen she is, she carried on with grace. After her dramatic exit from royalty, Soraya didn't just sit around moping. She went straight to Tinseltown and became a bona fide movie star. With her stunning looks, she landed roles and even went by just Soraya. If that's not A-list, I don't know what is, okay? She was on first name basis. But here's where the plot thickens. While working on The Three Faces, Soraya got tangled up in a classic Hollywood romance with none other than her director, Franco Endovina. She was looking for a distraction from her royal heartbreak, and she did find it. Soraya was head over heels, calling Endovina the second love of her life. But the guy was still married, unfortunately. And just when Soraya thought she'd had her fair share of headache, 1972 rolled around and dropped a bombshell on her. Endovina died in a tragic plane crash, and Soraya was left shattered, and she decided to retreat to her penthouse. Fast forward to 1979, and life threw Soraya another curveball. The Shah, her ex-husband, and the man she never stopped loving, was dying of cancer. And despite everything, Soraya reached out with a heartfelt letter, revealing her undying love for him. And guess what? The Shah was still head over heels for her too. He wanted to see her one last time in Cairo, planning a secret rendezvous away from his vigilant wife, Farah Diba. But this isn't your typical fairy tale. Before they could have their meetup, the Shah passed away, leaving Soraya with a heart full of love and a lifetime of what-ifs. By 1980, Soraya had been through the emotional ringer not once, not twice, but 3 times. And twice it was with the same man. After he died, it's like something inside her just broke. She tried to keep up appearances, living it up in the fancy Élysée neighborhood of Paris, rubbing elbows with duchesses and movie stars, but if you look closely, you could tell she was just going through the motions. Fast forward to October 26, 2001, Soraya, once a queen, now lied cold and still in her Paris apartment. The big mystery, nobody knows exactly how she died. It's all hush-hush. It does get weirder. Just when you thought it couldn't get any more like a movie script, tragedy strikes again. Soraya's younger brother, Baijan, passes away right after her. Right before this, he had stated, when Soraya passed, and I quote, "After her, I don't have anyone to talk to," end quote. It was heart-wrenching. Suddenly, people started whispering about foul play. Could it be 2 deaths in the family, too close together? It's like a real-life mystery that leaves everyone guessing. Soraya's life, with its highs and lows, love and loss, has people drawn in comparisons to Romeo and Juliet. People can't help but be drawn to her story, calling her the sad-eyed princess. Even in photos, you can see the sadness in her eyes, like she's carrying the weight of the world. It's a tale that tugs at your heartstrings, making you wonder about the true story behind those sad eyes. And honestly, this is all I have for this video. It's just really sad. She married really young, was never able to have children, and when she found love again, he died in a plane crash. I just can't even imagine. And she died alone in her apartment. And she really did want kids and she wanted love. So I know dying alone was not how she wanted to go. Leave some crown emojis and a heart emoji in the comments for her. And check out my The Princess of Egypt, the first wife video, Faza. And let me know what you guys think. I'll pin it in the comment sections and in the end card for you guys. Matter of fact, you guys can check out my royal playlist. I'll pin that one in the comments so you guys can go check out all the royal people that we've already done, and comment below who else would you guys like me to do a video for. I do have a lot more royalty coming soon. I love you guys so much. If you like the music you're listening to, the link is in the description. Like this video, subscribe. Until next time.